Whatever you might be going through and wherever you might be, this is Omar Serrano with the Tilted Lawyer Podcast. I'm here to take your mind off of things. Yes, I'm an attorney. No, I'm not giving you legal advice. We're going to sit and talk like people, as these are the candid thoughts of one practicing attorney, and it's after hours. So have a seat. Feel free to have a drink and join me. Let's get started.
Whoever was taking the poll that we were going to start with sound or without sound, I wasn't even on the stage. So I guess starting, whoever had money on start without sound, you guys are the winners. You guys are the true dreamers, the true magicians. What's that saying from Willy Wonka? We are the music makers. We are the keeper of dreams, or whatever he said. It was beautiful. Folks, I'm exhausted, man. It has been a long day. You know who else was exhausted at the very tail end of this Karen Reed trial, having spent 2 months in service to the Commonwealth, to the courts in Boston, Mass, with the entire world watching in what was very much a contender for trial of the century, where you had multiple storylines of police misconduct, where we had botched investigations, where we had butt dials, where we had possible cover-ups, dog attacks, people getting murdered in basements, the disappearance of guilty dogs, the selling of houses, all of the hundreds of conspiracy theories that had run amok on the interwebs for years now. It all came to a crashing halt on Monday when the jury decided, after much deliberation, that they just couldn't do it anymore. The exact language, the exact word that they had said was, some are unmoved in their, obviously I'm paraphrasing, not the exact wording, but some were on the side of the Commonwealth has met their burden. Others disagreed. What could you take away from that? You're not going to get a rundown from that. Some can literally mean one. And if you are studying for the LSAT, all of you prospective law school students studying for the LSAT, just understand when you have a question that asks or presents a fact pattern and says some do a certain thing, that could literally mean one. Others, plural, meaning I take it to mean that more people were on the side of not guilty than guilty. You had 1 or 2 or 3 or however many holdouts that were holding off on this theory that the prosecution has met their burden. And how could you possibly? We did a whole rundown of evidence. What's up, Dominic? Joining us fashionably late, as always. Not as always. I'm usually the one that's fashionably late. How could you possibly, after going over all of the evidence, be of the conclusion that Karen Reed was responsible for the death of O'Keefe beyond a reasonable doubt? I just don't understand it. I went back over 30 days of evidence and testimony and just kind of briefly summarized. And every day that a new witness took the stand, there was new questions to be answered. There were new adventures to unearth. There was new theories that were presented or formulating as a result of evidence and questions in the case. In a world where you're supposed to have prove guilt beyond a reasonable doubt, I just don't understand. You'd have to break it down and explain it to me like I'm 5. Explain to me how the only reasonable conclusion out of all of the evidence is that Karen Reed backed over O'Keefe in a vehicle. Explain it to me. When the medical doctors got up there and said that his injuries were not consistent with the prosecution's theory of the case. And there was no counter evidence to that. I just don't understand it. I don't know what evidence they were relying on. Mary Grace says that I seem devastated. I'm not devastated. I'm not devastated. I am probably visibly exhausted because I just had a huge case of my own today. that I litigated all the way out in the desert in Barstow, California. It was a huge case, not to anybody out there, but to the parties involved. There was a lot at stake. The issues in that case somewhat mirrored the Laura Owens Clayton Eckerd case. My client, I felt, well, he was falsely accused of things, and it was a big day in court, and we emerged yet victorious after a fierce battle this morning in court. And so I was celebrating that. So that, coupled with the fact that I had to drive all the way to and from Barstow in 106-degree heat, I'm exhausted. This Karen Reed stuff, I'm not devastated by it. I'm devastated for the people involved, because Karen Reed, whatever you might think of her, you might think that she, I don't know what your opinions of her. I've heard people say that she was unhinged. She was an unhinged girlfriend. How dare she get upset at O'Keefe or be upset with him for wanting to spend time with his children, because God forbid those children interfere with their relationship time. I've heard a lot of people attack her for a lot of things. But one thing after 30 days of presentation that I didn't see was any evidence to suggest that she was a murderer. Isn't that what this trial was supposed to be about? Isn't that what we were going for? I didn't see it. I gave the Commonwealth the benefit of the doubt. And all I wanted was the following to be answered. You're saying that the damage to the taillight was as of the direct result of O'Keefe being struck by the taillight as Karen Reed was backing up at 25 miles per hour. I wanted to see before and after pictures of the taillight. We did see before and after pictures of the taillight. We even saw video evidence of Karen Reed backing up from the driveway on her way back to the scene, damaging her taillight further before she ever got back there. There was discrepancies in how many pieces of the taillight were recovered. At one point it was 3, and then it was 5 or 6 or whatever it was. There was inconsistent testimony throughout, to the point where nobody really honestly knows what the hell happened between that group of friends and those officers in the investigation. We had evidence, blood evidence, being collected in red Solo cups that you would find at any frat party within the 25-mile vicinity over there in Boston, Mass, let alone the world. The beer pong cups is what they had. That was the method of collection of evidence over here. One thing that became readily apparent to me was, if you were a part of this inner circle, the Good Old Boys Club over there in Boston, Mass, in law enforcement, if there was a pending investigation, they were going to make damn sure that you were not going to be implicated in it. And you know who wasn't a part of that crowd? Karen Reed, because there was, even after mistrial was declared, there was video of some individuals mouthing the words that "we're not done with you," or "this ain't over," or something to that effect. I don't know for sure. It's been speculated. I can't imagine the brazenness of doing something like that in the courtroom seconds after the trial was over. But, Proctor's over there giving interviews to the news affiliates over there in Boston, and yelling at them to get the F out of his yard, and then declaring Karen Reed a murderer. And his husband, I can't fault her for having her husband's back, but she says, "I support my husband," among other things, choice words that she said. I don't know. I'm devastated for the attorneys. If I was a defense attorney in this case, and I had just put on the trial of the century, the defense of the century, to be fair, I don't believe that there wasn't, well, let's put it this. I don't know if there wasn't a cover up in this case. I just know that the defense team did not prove that there was a cover up in this case, and it wasn't their job to prove that. They weren't the ones that had to prove anything. All they had to do was offer a viable alternative to this idea that Karen Reed was responsible for O'Keefe's death. To me, that wasn't done. At least one person thought otherwise, and that's why we're all here. I've never been part of an active jury, but I would go absolutely bonkers if it was an 11-1 scenario and I was going to be a part of a mistrial because one dipshit wanted to hold on to some bullshit theory that the evidence didn't support. no matter what kind of scientific evidence, no matter what kind of logic, no matter what kind of appeal to science that you try to exhibit on this guy, he's going to hang steadfast on his opinion of guilt, no matter what, for no other reason other than pride. And the foreperson that wrote the note to the judge was so kind in their words, saying that, look, we are deeply ingrained in our beliefs. None of us are going to be convinced otherwise. And rather than be forced to compromise our morals, we are declaring ourselves at an impasse. And then the judge is like, all right, well, we're not going to make you go back on your morals, so I'm going to declare a mistrial. Debbie Albert says, I feel sorry for his parents. They will never, they will, I'm assuming that meant never know the truth. Well, I don't know. If I was O'Keefe's dad, I'm not sure what I would think, but I mean, there's nothing's going to bring his son back. I mean, what? So you want me to blame the death on Karen? If I'm a father, a parent, and if I am looking at this case objectively, the first person I'm angry at is my son for putting himself in that situation, and be more like, I raised you better than this, son. You're sitting here drunk off your acid and freezing ass temperatures and throwing alcohol glasses at taillights or, I don't know if that would have, I would have asked so many questions though. And I don't know if they haven't had those thoughts. But to suggest that his father is somehow, and nobody suggested this, but according to the Commonwealth, to suggest they know definitively that Karen Read was the one responsible, in spite of the medical evidence that was presented at trial. I was questioning during the trial whether or not, or why second degree was even on the table in this case, given the cell phone evidence. Look, we've seen cover-ups in cell phone communications before. We've seen it in very famous cases when somebody wants to make it look like they have no idea that their ex-husband or wife is dead. And so they'll do like this token text message at some random time, asking them some mundane question. And like, oh, I don't know. I have no idea where she's at. I texted her earlier and she never responded back. And we'll send one or two of those. Karen Read sent 53 text messages and a couple of screaming at the top of her lungs, angry as F voicemails. That's not somebody who's of the belief that Mr. O'Keefe has passed away. All right, so then maybe she just hit him and didn't know. Well, maybe, except the medical evidence doesn't support that theory, does it? The injuries were very clear. Lacerations to the back of the head, multiple skull fractures as the result of blunt force trauma to the back of the head, brain swelling that would have caused instant unconsciousness. If it were to be a car accident, the medical people would have been expecting to see much more significant injuries, massive bruising on the face and the chest, in the lower extremities, other broken bones. What they found was superficial wounds, swollen eyes, as if the guy had gotten in a fight. They even said it looked to me a lot more like he got in a fight as opposed to being run over by a car. That was the very last witness, I want to say, on day 29 that the defense put up there. And on cross-exam, that guy, the one that sounded Lord of the Rings, like Lord of the Rings, the Commonwealth tried to get him to admit, okay, well, what if this, and that happened? Would you then change your mind? And the doctor was literally like, yeah, if all those things happened, except none of those things happened. And so I don't agree with your theory, in so many words, is what he said. Quality says, but Omar, you didn't take off her shoes. Yeah, I guess. Guilty, I guess. 100%. Lock her up. I don't know. I am, if I was on the jury, I would be devastated that one effing holdout, on the basis of what? I would be so curious to know what his arguments were. What was keeping him on the side of guilt? It just doesn't seem like a reasonable person. I mean, I felt like this case at the very end of it was bordering on potential directed verdict status, which of course it wasn't because of the lesser included charges. involuntary manslaughter and all those kinds of things. It was never going to reach that status, but in terms of second degree murder, which required, here's my thought on that. Second degree murder requires a specific mens rea, mental status, such that you intended to kill somebody. I don't see where you got the intent from the actions of Karen Reed. Given the 53 phone calls, given that there was no evidence suggesting that she ran over Mr. O'Keefe. I don't see where you get there. Maybe you can make the argument, oh, she was just blinded with rage, and because she was so blackout drunk, she just doesn't remember. Maybe, except there was not evidence that suggested she was hit by a car. See, that's the problem. You could keep presenting those theories, and the main reason before this trial even started that I wanted to know what the medical injuries were was because they were either going to support or not support the Commonwealth's theory of the case. Because if they would have came back, the medical doctor would have came back and said, oh, well, definitely these injuries that are 100% consistent with somebody that's been in a car accident or has been struck by a car at approximately 24 miles per hour. Much easier. Okay, so definitely 100% beyond a shadow of a doubt, he was hit by a car. We didn't even have that. We didn't. We just have a dead body. How? I don't know. Maybe the guy fell and hit his head. That is a viable theory. He fell and hit his head on the asphalt and rolled around in the grass, lost consciousness very quickly, and then died of hypothermia, brain swelling, whatever. Or he was lured into the house, and because of some prideful romantic quarrel between him and Higgins, they had words and shoving ensued, and he accidentally smashed his head on the tail end of a nightstand or something, instantly died, and they dragged him out from the basement, through the backyard, into the front yard, back to where they found him, left him for dead, and tried to make it look as if Karen Reed was responsible. But then they would have had to have known that Karen Reed left angrily, which from the evidence that I saw, I don't think that they ever gave testimony to form that conclusion. They were pretty hush-hush. Yeah, there's a lot of secret text messages, a lot of butt dials and whatnot, and inconsistent testimony. But they were so, I got the impression that there were people that legitimately didn't know what happened. And then there was people that weren't forthcoming. Proctor, Higgins, some of the investigators, some of the EMTs. It's hard to go back off. This is very much a rant of mine over my displeasure at the results of the case. I had very much predicted that today would be the day we'd find a verdict. I did not think that they were going to spend the weekend and then come back on Monday and just declare a mistrial after a few hours, which is exactly what they did. So go figure. I meant what you stood. Love that name. Oh, nice dog, by the way. She says, my theory is that those looking at guilty were morally stuck on her driving drunk and wouldn't budge on it even if the evidence didn't support that John was hit by her car. I don't know. I feel like if I was the foreman in that jury, I would have started from the bottom up. Okay. Do we believe beyond a reasonable doubt that she was guilty of driving intoxicated? Yes. All right, good. Guilty of that, lesser included. Do we believe that she was guilty of leaving the scene of an accident while intoxicated? Yes, we do. Guilty on that one. Do we believe beyond a reasonable doubt that she is guilty of involuntary manslaughter because she ran over him in a car? Well, some say yes, some say no. All right, well, let's start there. Then you got the two lesser included in, and then you're just worrying about the bigger stuff. I think that's the way to do it if you're on a jury, but I don't get to be in there and give them that directive. And that's just from a common sense approach. I feel like oftentimes they start from the top and work their way down to the bottom. Many times, because if you're guilty of the stuff at the top, then you're necessarily guilty of the lesser includeds. I don't know. Quality says, I undermeant when, God damn it, you guys. Undermeant what you stood. Trooper B said many things that didn't match the video. It was bizarre. Yeah. Oh, yeah, Debbie. Cops threw away the phone. Wasn't it Higgins that was supposed to turn over his cell phone? I think on the 30th. And then on the 29th, he not only got a new phone or a new carrier, but he took his old phone and destroyed the SIM card with scissors and threw it away at some military base where nobody checks the garbage. There's nothing suspicious about that at all. These effing people. I'll tell you what, I would not feel safe being a citizen over there in the Commonwealth if I ever found myself on the wrong side of law enforcement over there. They do whatever they want to do. And there's certain individuals that'll go along with it. I don't know. Maybe she thought that she should pay for driving intoxicated. But I got to assume if they thought that, I mean, everybody was intoxicated. O'Keefe himself was intoxicated. All the friends were, everybody was drinking, driving drunk. Jody, who? How you doing, man? She says Higgins and Brian Albert regimes phones one day before. I'm not sure what you intended to say there, Miss Who, but I'm going to go with it anyway. Hey, Dominic, you back there? I'm just checking for signs.
Yeah, I'm here.
Well, it's good to hear from you. I hope you're not making a sandwich.
No.
Oh, so there was this very interesting article that was read or written in the New Yorker. Somebody posted it in our Discord. And if you're not a member of the Discord, you need to get your little behinds down there. There's lots of shenanigans going on down there. It's a good place to come and hang out. The Tilt to the Lawyer podcast Discord. In the Patreon, if you haven't done so, we do. We're reviewing this week. This week, we're going to be reviewing MILF Manor. I don't know what I'm going to find with the MILF Manor. I just know you shouldn't Google it because of results. I know about that show that it's got 3.7 stars out of 10 from reputable review websites that are out there. But go sign up for the Discord, folks. This article, I'm going to share this with you. I thought it was excellent and just kind of caught. It was an excellent journalistic entry by a very good writer that kind of caught the tenor of the moment. If I can remember how to share things, I will do so. We may or may not be joined by Zawaki later on this live stream. I know he's got better things to do. I just recorded a video with him earlier that's going to be published on our site, but it's definitely it's going to be up in about an hour on his site, on his channel. So go check him out and subscribe to him if you haven't done so already. But let me get to you this article. We're going to go over this together because I thought it was really good. All right. Let me zoom in on this. All right. The irresolvable tragedy of the Karen Reed case, written by Jessica Winter. She just published this yesterday. She starts off very poetic. This is a very good writer, by the way. I was really impressed. I'm not impressed easily by written prose words. On the eve of a blizzard in January 2022, Karen Reed and her boyfriend, the Boston Police Department officer John O'Keefe, both in their 40s, their relationship troubled, went out drinking with some friends at a couple of bars in Canton, Massachusetts at around midnight. One of the friends invited the group back to his place on Fairview Road, a short drive away as snow was lightly falling. Reed, a trim financial analyst who allegedly consumed between 4 and 9 drinks. That's quite a wide range, isn't it? But that was the testimony. It was either somewhere between 4 and 10 for this petite-looking woman that evening. She drove O'Keefe to the friend's house, arriving around 12:24 a.m. By 12:37 a.m., Reed had left and driven to O'Keefe's place nearby by herself and left him a succinct voicemail. John, I fucking hate you. And another voicemail recorded about a half hour later. Hey, Dominic, edit out the curse word, yeah? I forgot. You know what I mean. Reed screamed, you effing pervert. You're effing pervert. 7 minutes later, you're effing another girl. There was more. Reed called O'Keefe 53 times in total that morning. That just sounds like, sure, she's pissed at him, but she's calling him all of these names. It never struck me as somebody who knew or understood or thought that O'Keefe had passed away or that she hit him with the car. Megan, Florida, thank you so much. She says, Ormar Proctor has been proven such a liar. Oh, I agree. And it's my understanding that hasn't he been relieved of his duties as of like yesterday? Will his previous convictions as an investigator compromise his previous convictions, possibly thrown out? Nah, I don't know. That's a stretch. But I'll tell you what it's not going to do. It's not going to stop creative defense attorneys or appellate attorneys from bringing up those issues on appeals and their respective cases. It can impact future cases. 100% it can. Proctor has, to me, the credibility of a gnat. I wouldn't trust that guy any further than I could throw him, much less hire him for anything above, I don't know, some kind of mundane minimum wage worker. I would certainly not put him in a position of trust or influence. He is beyond hiring at this point. I believe he's been relieved of his duties. I believe that to be true, and I don't think he's ever going to work in law enforcement again. Has it opened the door for possible appellate issues on cases that he's investigated? Yeah, sure, maybe. You'd have to be more specific on how his specific investigation led to convictions in those respective cases. But yeah, it's opened a door, however big it might be. So there's that. So sometime before 5 a.m., after about 6 inches of snow had accumulated in Canton, Reed woke up at O'Keefe's place, but he wasn't at home. She phoned one of his friends, Kerry Roberts, who later testified that Reed screamed, "John's dead." According to Roberts and another friend, Jennifer McCabe, Reed was semi-coherent, possibly still drunk, probably still drunk. And at first seemed to think that she had left O'Keefe at the bar. Now, her blood alcohol, if I remember correctly, by the time she was tested at around 8 a.m. that morning, was something like 0.892, between 0.892 and like 0.91, something like that, which means if her last drink was taken at around 12:45 that night, her blood alcohol would have been, according to testimony, something like 0.17 to 0.29. If you believe that that's when she had her last drink. And then there was testimony that if her last drink was prior to that, then yeah, it throws off the entire calculation. But yeah, she was probably really, really drunk. I think that was established. So according to Roberts, James Key raised possibly strong. At first seemed to think she had left O'Keefe at the bar. McCabe reminded Reed that her SUV had been parked outside the Fairview Road house a few hours before. When the three women drove back together to Fairview Road, the sky black, snow churning, roads and visibility terrible. Hey, if Gingras is listening to this or watching this, what Gingras attempts to do in all of his Twitter posts is exactly what this professional writer is doing. She's really good. I suspect that she's either in the written novels before or is in the process of writing, but she's a really good writer. This is not what an AI article looks like. This is what humans could do. Of course, somebody's going to identify, oh no, it was actually generated by this AI thing and totally dunk on my analysis. But hey, what are you going to do? You take chances. Sometimes you gamble and win. Sometimes you gamble and lose. So Reed immediately spotted O'Keefe lying in front of the house, dying or already dead beneath a mound of snow. Multiple witnesses recalled Reed exclaiming repeatedly, "I hit him," or was it, "Did I hit him?" Or was it, "I hit him?" Some varying inflections. The inflection's important. What I had suggested prior to this mistrial was that I think that you could get a really good idea of what she actually said by the actions of everybody that was in the investigation, and not law enforcement, not the EMT, not anybody that was involved there at the scene was treating it as if it was a homicide, even if Karen Reed's over here allegedly confessing that she hit him. Nobody treated it as if it was a homicide, which leads me to believe that she was questioning whether or not she hit him, not proposing that she was the person that definitively hit him. By their actions, you will know. And by their actions, they were not treating it as if Karen Reed was confessing to anything. So earlier, Reed had pointed out that her car's taillight had been broken, suggesting that she might have backed into a vehicle into O'Keefe, or backed the vehicle into O'Keefe as she was dropping him off at the house. There's video that shows that she backed into something and damaged her taillight on the way over there. Which, by the way, when the jurors had saw that, the defense attorney, Alan Jackson, was like, there was like this audible gasp. And I don't know if there was or not, but he portrayed it as being one. When officers measured Reed's blood alcohol level later that morning, more than 8 hours after she had left the bar. It exceeded the legal driving limit, would have been about 0.08. A medical examiner later determined that O'Keefe had suffered blunt force head trauma and that hypothermia had contributed to his death. Where was the head injury? On the back of his head, including swelling in both of his eyes. The question of exactly what happened to O'Keefe after 12/24 on January 29th, 2022 has powered quasi-forensic Reddit threads, innumerable group texts, and a gallery of Boston Herald covers since Reed was indicted 2 years ago for second-degree murder, motor vehicle manslaughter, while under the influence, and leaving the scene of the accident. Like I said, if I was in the deliberation room, I would have started from the bottom up. Leaving the scene of the accident, sure, guilty. There was an accident. She left the scene. You want to find her guilty for something? Maybe it could be that. Manslaughter while under the influence? Do we know if she hit the car? She said that. She may have said that. We don't know if she said that. Does the evidence support it? No, it doesn't. So how do we get there? If I could just have been a fly on the wall of those deliberations, all I wanted to know was what was their logical reasoning to pointing towards guilt. That's all I want to know. Whatever it was, right or wrong, I'm just curious how they formed that conclusion. That's all I want to know. The tragedy of O'Keefe's death has been heightened by the mystery of whether he might have been saved had he been found and treated earlier. Well, that is the question, isn't it? And his family's misfortune was multiplied to Gothic levels by O'Keefe's station as guardian to his niece and nephew. What a beautiful sentence. And his family's misfortune was multiplied to Gothic levels by O'Keefe's station as guardian to his niece and nephew, who were orphaned years ago after their mother, O'Keefe's sister, died of brain cancer and their father died of a heart attack. You know, just that backstory, as this story started to gain momentum, lent itself to further entrench its tentacles into the general conscious about what actually happened in this case. And it was around this time, about a year ago, that you started to hearing the first inklings about the misconduct in the investigation in this case. In Commonwealth v. Karen Reed, which began in April, the Law and Crime Network, which provided wall-to-wall coverage, called it the boyfriend cop murder trial. The prosecution outlined a simple and rather pathetic tale. I'm so glad she said that. A drunk woman either accidentally or intentionally backed over her boyfriend with the car, left him for dead, and admitted it. That was literally their theory. Did they offer any alternatives? Was there any alternative theory to that? You're telling me your only theory of the case was that she backed over him, either intentionally or unintentionally, left the scene, and she admitted it. And over, Lawley kept on saying, I hit him. I want your Northern Star to be that phrase when she admitted to everybody that she hit him with her car. But they could never pin down the inflection in her voice. They could never explain why the investigation never, at that point, when she had allegedly admitted to hitting him, had turned from an accident investigation to a homicide investigation. They couldn't even explain why nobody put I hit him into the reports until after the grand jury hearings sometime later. Why the story kept evolving. That was literally the theory of the case. But Reed later insisted that she never struck O'Keefe. Many observers believed her. A counter hypothesis emerged, positing that Reed had been framed for murder, that O'Keefe was badly beaten inside the Fairview Road residence after Reed dropped him off, and then he was dumped outside or maybe attacked by a dog or both. The medical examiner determined that O'Keefe had no major injuries below the neck, which is huge because had he been struck by a car, I mean, you're talking about broken ribs, you're talking about, broken bones in your lower extremities, you're talking about massive bruising. How do I know that? Because the freaking medical examiner who examined the injuries said as much. Look, I've seen hundreds of dog injuries. I've seen hundreds of people that had died by way of getting into a fight. I've seen hundreds of people over the course of my 30-year career who have been injured and ran over and hit by cars. His injuries did not fit that he was struck by a car. That's what he said. Medical examiner determined that O'Keefe had no major injuries below the neck, but he did have lacerations to his arm that, according to expert testimony, appeared to be dog bites or scratches. That also, he, in conjunction with saying that, would have occurred while he was still alive. These sharply diverging theories may have been reflected in the outcome of the case, which ended on Monday with a deadlocked jury and a mistrial. Usually when you have sharply diverging theories that are both credible, that you can't outright dismiss, usually that ends up in an acquittal. That didn't happen here, obviously. Each day of Reed's trial, throngs of protesters with Free Karen Reed signs gathered outside the courthouse, clad in pink, galvanized by the muckraking of a local blogger, Aidan Kearney, who goes by the unforgivable nickname Turtle Boy. His zealous advocacy of Reed led to his own arrest and indictment on charges of witness intimidation and wiretapping. Turtle Boy has pled not guilty, by the way. I'm here right now because I'm exposing corruption, Kearney told reporters outside a district court in October. I'm exposing what really happened to John O'Keefe and the powerful, the well-connected people who murdered him and covered up his murder. Kearney's private Facebook group, Justice for Officer John O'Keefe and Karen Reed, Turtle Boy official, has more than 50,000 members who have raised nearly $400,000 for Reed's defense fund. The state's case against Reed did have glaring weaknesses. And Lucane, what the hell is that word? Lucane? Oh, pardon me, folks. I've just encountered a word that I have never heard or read. A gap or space, especially in a book or a manuscript. Who knew? I was looking for a phonetic spelling of it. I couldn't find one. Never mind. Anyway, so people were in and out of the Fairview Road residence for hours on the night of O'Keefe's death, yet there is no eyewitness account of Reed's SUV striking O'Keefe. Brian Higgins, an ATF agent who had been flirting in person and over text with Reed, left the residence at some point after 12:30 a.m., but said that he didn't see O'Keefe lying on the ground. 5 other guests who left the house in the early morning hours said the same, although one recalled a black blob of some kind. The snowplow driver who cleared the area around the house in the wee hours of January 29th didn't see O'Keefe either. One might have expected a vigorous probe into the death of O'Keefe, given that he was a Boston police officer, but so too was Brian Albert, the owner of the Fairview Road house, oddly, even though Albert had invited a fellow cop to his home who was later found dead on the lawn. His residence was never searched for evidence. Never searched. Never searched. Why? Nor was much interest taken in Albert's dog, a German Shepherd, despite the injuries to O'Keefe's arm. The family rehomed the dog a few months after O'Keefe's death, and while Albert was trained as a first responder, he was not roused from his bedroom while EMTs and police were gathered in front of his house on the morning of January 29th. Wasn't it the day? Yeah, less than 24 hours after O'Keefe was pronounced dead, the lead investigator on the case, a Massachusetts state trooper named Michael Proctor, shared his peremptory impressions of Reed over text with friends, which he was forced to read aloud on the stand. Reed was, in Proctor's estimation, a whack job cunt with a weird Fall River accent and no ass. Zero chance she skates, which is a weird observation, which forgive me from being for Southern California, but nobody says that over here. It must be a thing in Boston. Chime in if you're from the East Coast. Zero chance she skates, he predicted. She's fucked. In a reflective moment, Proctor also said, hopefully she kills herself. Well, because then he wouldn't have to cover up anything, right? She was already the prime suspect in a murder investigation, case closed. No need for a trial, no need for anybody to closely examine anything, right? That last appalling quip has a resonance that Proctor could not have intended in a town a few miles southeast of Canton. 3 police officers are facing a wrongful death lawsuit from the estate of Sandra Birchmore, a 23-year-old pregnant woman who was found dead in her apartment in 2021. Birchmore, who joined the local police department's youth program at age 13, was allegedly sexually exploited by the 3 officers. One of them, a detective named Matthew Farewell, allegedly began a sexual relationship with her when she was 15. Before she died, Birchmore told friends that Farewell was her unborn baby's father. He was also the last person to see Birchmore alive. Farewell and the other officers have denied the allegations against them. Of course they have. And maybe they covered for, their many unfortunate evils, let's just say. The state medical examiner concluded that Birchmore had died by suicide, and in a separate investigation, the same district attorney's office that pursued the charges against Karen Reed found no evidence of foul play in Birchmore's death. I only take solace in this fact that the FBI has completed a complete investigation of the law enforcement investigative techniques, not just associated with this case, but I'd imagine with the entire department. And I can only imagine that there is charges forthcoming at a federal level against some of the individuals involved in this case. I can only hope that that's the result of their investigation. Otherwise, what the hell were they investigating for? It certainly had nothing to do with Karen Reed trial, or was going to affect the merits of the outcome of the trial. But earlier this month, a forensic pathologist hired by Birchmore's estate concluded that she had been strangled to death. The report also noted that a rape kit and fetal tissue taken from her body were never sent for DNA analysis. That's really upsetting for me to read as a defense attorney, as an attorney that practices around the area of criminal law that deals with these kinds of investigations on a daily basis. It's really upsetting for me to read something like that. For many local observers, the death of Birchmore and O'Keefe are twin exhibits of institutional decay, of a law enforcement apparatus rigged with malfeasance, ineptitude, and indifference, leaving behind two victims whose final moments may never be known or understood. In fact, before Reed's trial had ever begun, the U.S. Attorney's Office in Massachusetts launched an investigation into how law enforcement had handled the O'Keefe case. An engineering consulting firm hired by the Department of Justice to reconstruct the alleged crash concluded that O'Keefe's injuries were not consistent with being struck by a vehicle. How many different people do we need to hear that from before we just declare it true? Proctor's text, though ill-advised, turned out to be somewhat accurate. Reed did not skate, despite the apparent toddler-level proficiency of state and local investigators. This writer's really good, man. I'd love to have a sit-down with her. Blood was collected from the scene in red Solo cups and placed in a Stop and Shop bag. Stop and Shop, not even a 7-Eleven, not even a Safeway, not even a Kroger. On TikTok, CBS Boston shared an interview with a Reed supporter who wore Solo cup earrings. One police lieutenant trawled for evidence using a leaf blower. A leaf blower. I'm exasperated. Hey, what was that? Oh, is this the... What's up, Zawalki? How you doing, sir?
Hello.
It's good to see you. I was just letting people know earlier that I had just recorded a video about the Christopher Watts case with you, about the prospects of Christopher Watts ever getting out of jail, to which we declared slim to none, to put it lightly.
Pretty much.
And then the chances of Nicole Kessinger ever being prosecuted in this case, to which I said, yeah, you're going to have to try harder because, well, for reasons. You're going to have to check out Zawaki's video whenever it's published, maybe today, maybe tomorrow, whenever. How good are your editing skills, sir?
I would say I have 10. I'd say an 8.
Well, mine are pretty bad. I had to hire a guy. It's funny. After I hired him, Dominic's he's somewhere in there in the background. After I hired him, the video quality got better, and then our subscriber count started climbing and climbing. We were just going over this article regarding Karen Reed, to which I'm not sure how much, if anything, you know about this case, but it was this wild case involving police misconduct, and I was going through this very well written article, honestly, and I'm not even bullshitting when I say this. It's probably the best news article I've read in the 2020s. Let's just say that, without trying to embellish. It's really good. Continuing on, she's mentioning right here that blood was collected. They literally collected blood evidence in a murder scene using Solo cups that was obtained from a Stop and Shop that they placed in a Stop and Shop bag and sent for forensic analysis. which is not the way that things are normally done, to say the least. So, continuing with this article, one police lieutenant trawled for evidence using a leaf blower. That's where you came in, sir. So during cross-examination, one of Reed's attorneys performed a ritual disembowelment of Joseph Paul, the state trooper who was tasked with reconstructing the alleged crash. On the stand, Paul admitted to having only rudimentary knowledge of kinematics, could not identify kinematics as a subfield of physics, could not parse a definition of the word acceleration. Hey, Zwaki, how would you parse a definition of the word acceleration?
Super speed.
No.
Well, I wouldn't say. I would say acceleration for going from 0 to 60.
Well, the act of causing an object to go from one point to another with force, causing it to move.
That way.
I don't know. That's my attempt at parsing a definition. I hope I did this right or proud. All I'm saying is this expert witness couldn't do it. But your attempt was probably better than his. So Hal Reed's lawyer asked, after O'Keefe had allegedly been struck by a 2-ton vehicle, did his cell phone end up beneath his body? Well, it just did. That was literally the evidence. So in case you're unfamiliar, this gentleman, John O'Keefe, was alleged to have been struck by a vehicle traveling in reverse by his girlfriend, who was really upset with him, leaving him to die in the lawn of a friend's house, of which they were visiting after a night of bar hopping, consuming copious amounts of alcohol. Just put it this way, the evidence does not support that theory. There is the defense's theory, which is he was lured into a house. There was some kind of a lover's tiff. Not that they were fighting over her, but there was maybe perhaps a shoving match, because he knew that there was some funny business going on between one of the people in the house and his girlfriend. Maybe there was a shoving match. He fell backwards and hit his head, cutting it open, causing swelling in the brain. Maybe he died instantly, maybe not. But they dragged his body, perhaps while he was still alive, left it in the snow, and tried to make it look like Karen Reed did it. That's basically the competing theories. So Hal Reed's lawyer asked after O'Keefe, and somehow after all of that, his cell phone just ended up in his body. And I don't know what just did. So stranger still was the whirl of phone calls in the early morning hours of January 29th among McCabe, Higgins, Albert's wife. These calls were, according to the witnesses, mostly butt dials. How many times have you ever butt dialed anybody?
Once or twice.
In the course of a year, let's just say. Well, this month. How about that?
None.
When I butt dial somebody, it's a pretty rare occurrence. These people, this group of friends, this network of law enforcement people involved in the investigation of a murder case, basically stated through testimony that there were multiple butt dials on or around or in or around the time of the incident that occurred, just coincidentally, where there were not butt dials, perhaps the week before, or were there butt dials the week after. It just so happens that on the night that one of their good friends goes dead, that there's multiple butt dials amongst this group of friends, leading people to suspect that maybe these people were involved in a cover-up, or at the very least found O'Keefe's dead body, don't know how it happened, and said, this is what we're going to do. We're all safe because we're law enforcement or whatever. You guys are going to be safe. We're going to pin it on Karen, whom it also was identified in testimony. They really didn't like Karen. They just really didn't. So even the ones that didn't go to, Albert implied on the stand that he was being intimate with his wife at a moment when records show he butt dialed Higgins, which I don't know, man. Usually intimacy involves cell phones being like on the nightstand or something.
I was going to say, if I'm going to be intimate, my phone is not on my vicinity.
Well, usually clothes are not
exactly.
Let alone like in pockets somewhere. I mean, I'm not going to speculate any further than that. I'm just saying that it's not credible testimony. So Higgins in a delightful, where did I leave off? Records show he was being intimate with his wife at a moment when records show he butt dialed Higgins. In a delightful coincidence, Higgins butt dialed him back. What do you mean? What do you know?
They both butt dialed each other.
They are related butt dials. Jesus. Okay. So the exchange evokes the emotion, the emoticon. I don't know what this emoticon is supposed to be, but it looks like that. Popularized by Miranda July in the film Me and You and Everyone We Know. So Albert disposed of his phone. I've never seen that movie. Albert disposed of his phone. This was what got me. Albert disposes of his phone the day before a court order was issued compelling him to preserve its contents. I trust this writer is going to ferret this part of it out because I've tried to describe it earlier in my own words, but I'm expecting something spectacular here. Let's see what she does. He said he'd simply traded it in for a newer model. Higgins went so far as to destroy his phone and SIM card and leave them in a dumpster on a Cape Cod military base. This is a lot farther than just doing a bare bones factory reset. He destroys the phone, cuts up the SIM card with scissors, and leaves the remnants in a nearby military base on Cape Cod the day before he was ordered to turn over that evidence. In California, we call that the destruction of electronically stored evidence, which by itself is a crime. Somehow it's not a crime here.
Weird.
He claimed that the target of an investigation had got hold of his personal number, and that was the reason for it. Oh, sure, it was for security purposes.
It's so many coincidences that don't make sense.
Well, it gets deeper.
Oh boy.
But for the single eeriest act allegedly performed by any witness in this case, the distinction belongs to Jennifer McCabe, who is Brian Albert's sister-in-law. McCabe was part of the bar hopping group on January 29th, gave O'Keefe directions to Albert's house, and repeatedly texted and butt dialed O'Keefe when he didn't show up. According to an expert analysis of McCabe's phone at 2:27 a.m., hours before O'Keefe's body was discovered, McCabe entered a search into Google that she later deleted, and that whatever its provenance may haunt her for the rest of her days, Haas long to die in cold. A recovered Google search from her cell phone around 2:27 a.m., a couple of hours after Karen Reed had already left the scene. I'm assuming, Reed was not even there because I think she didn't get back there until like around 5 a.m. when she was looking for John. But on the stand, McCabe firmly denies making the long search at 2:27 a.m. She maintained that she had actually done a similar Google search hours later, only after they'd found the body and at Reed's specific request, which is bizarre. Hey, let me just paint for you a hypothetical, Zawaki. You find a body laying there dead in the snow.
Mm-hmm.
What is the first thing you do?
Call the authorities, 911.
Well, let me just ask you this: how far down the troughs is the thought to Google how long before somebody dies in the cold?
I would have never done that.
I'm assuming because you would have been busy with a 911 dispatcher trying to resuscitate the dead body or something.
Yep.
Or not touching the dead body because he's already dead and we need to get to the bottom of this.
Oh,
I'm not Googling anything.
Never. Why would you Google it?
Because you're trying to, I don't know,
cover
maybe
up.
You knew that he was already dead or in the process of dying, or who knows, man. It's a bizarre text message to send if you're sitting there by yourself claiming not to have known that the body was in existence, which is pretty much what she did. So she maintained that she had only actually done a similar Google search hours later, only after they'd found the body at Karen Reed's specific request. Give me a break. I don't think I've ever asked anybody to Google anything unless I was trying to win an argument with my wife or something. No, I'm definitely right. Google it. Go ahead. Google. Fact check me. So, but whoever wished to know how long it takes to die in the cold, and whenever they asked, they had their answers soon enough. A bone-chilling gust of incompetent collusion swirls around this extremely outer Boston saga, like a Dennis Lehane novel adapted by the Coen brothers. The bumbling attempts to close ranks, the incestuous conflicts of interest, the Wahlbergian R's and vowels. I love this writer, man. The incantation of technical terms such as butt dial, all of it can almost make you forget about the man freezing to death at the foot of the lawn. The cast of characters is neighborhood specific and yet hard to place. Class-wise, there's Albert, the bullet-headed, salt of the earth cop who lived in a $900,000 house. There's McCabe, the basketball mom and a smart blazer with a perfect blowout, a flinty Mayor Quimby accent, and a wonky tooth. Everybody has an Irish last name. Everybody went to kindergarten with the other guy and is the other lady's brother-in-law. And everybody drinks and drives, spend enough time mucking through the copland and Canton bog of this case, and you will never get into a car after 8 p.m. in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts ever again. What a beautiful comparison. You ever watch that movie Copland? It has Ray Liotta in it, rest in peace. It has Sylvester Stallone in it. It has I want to say it had Al Pacino in it.
Sounds familiar.
It came out in either the late 90s or early 2000s. It is definitely a movie that was before its time. It didn't get much acclaim when it came out, but it is by far and away one of the better movies that Sylvester Stallone has ever acted in. I highly recommend it. He got really out of shape, overweight for the role, played a cop who was taking over a department and was faced with corruption, similar to what we saw on display here in this Karen Reed trial. Anyway, I highly recommend it. A quintessential episode. While Proctor was leading the investigation into O'Keefe's death, in which Brian Albert was a key witness, Proctor also worked a case with Albert's brother, Kevin, a cop in Canton. One summer's night, the two comrades went out for beers and then drove home in Proctor's police cruiser. The next day, Proctor texted his colleague, "Found your badge in my cruiser this morning." In return text, Kevin Albert asked if he'd left his gun in the car too and complained about his hangover. "It's bad. I was hungover for sure today. Couple tonight to make me feel good." A couple of what? What's the prescription for What's the prescription for a hangover?
Ibuprofen and orange juice.
Or a Bloody Mary, maybe a couple Bloody Marys. I've heard about that one being a thing. So above all else, a totalizing drinking culture is what both defined and obscured this unresolved, perhaps irresolvable case. It opens the elevator shaft onto a bottomless enigma. Did Reed, who allegedly woke up thinking she'd last seen O'Keefe at a bar, ever piece together any reliable memory shards from that night? Or did her mutating account of events generate itself from a primordial soup of liquor, panic, guilt, and conjecture? Here's Karen Reed's perspective. She leaves thinking that she left John at the bar that night and was pissed off and really mad that he didn't come home, and she left him 53 text messages and a couple really angry voicemails. She was really drunk, having somewhere between 4 and 9 alcoholic beverages. Her blood alcohol level that morning at around 8 a.m. was just above the legal level. If you go by scientific alcohol degradation in the system, it would have put her somewhere between, I forget what the numbers were, like 0.13 and 0.27, I think is what came out of trial.
Jeez.
So she was really, really drunk, and she's trying to make sense of all that what happened. And she's asking the question, uncertain of what actually happened. Did I hit him? Did I run him over? Could I have run him over? She just doesn't know. People are telling her that. I'd imagine she's literally asking the question during the investigation. All I want you to take from that is to know this, that the people that were doing the investigation on the night of the incident never treated this as a homicide investigation. That didn't become a thing until after everybody got their story straight and they decided that they wanted to pin this on Karen Reed. Do I know this for a fact? No, but that is very much the most logical of the explanations from what I could piece together from this mess of testimony that we've gone over. So, continuing with the article, did visitors to Fairview Road miss O'Keefe's body on the lawn because it wasn't there, or because they were too drunk to notice? Both plausible to me. Do any of these people really remember what happened? Even under ideal circumstances, memories aren't retrieved exactly so much as they are reconstructed. And I know that eyewitness testimony is some of the least reliable testimony in a trial. It really is. People's memories are just dog-ass.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you've ever done the exercise of trying to recall like a family moment from 25 years ago with like your brother or your siblings or your parents. I promise you, there are things that you remember that they have no recollection of, like as if it never happened. And there are similar events that you guys will recall and have very different accounts of what actually happened, what was said. Just, hey, people's minds wander and they fill in the gaps to serve the purpose of its host. And your purposes are not going to be the same as anybody else's in the universe. And yet we rely on eyewitness testimony as if it's something to be treasured. I posit that should not be the case, but it's what we have. So like a crash, you might say. So the blackout drinker it follows has no materials to build with. Blackouts occur when alcohol interferes with receptors of the hippocampus that aid in memory consolidation, rendering the drinker incapable of making and storing new memories, which is 100% a thing. She can be an engine of a narrative, but cannot tell the story. Others may know her, provided they are not also blackout drinking, but she cannot know herself. She is absent from her own consciousness, which is exactly what happens when you're blackout drunk. You lose the ability to form short-term memory, but your long-term memories are enhanced. Go figure. Alcohol is a great tool to aid in creativity, but it is a poor tonic to recover your short-term moments, which is to say, it is borderline a hallucinogen in some case. Anyway, I'm talking about things that I'm not qualified to say. In some sense, she is a person who in that moment doesn't fully exist, a zombie, an automaton, a ghost of her present tense. Binge drinking offers true oblivion, a petite mort. Many in this canton milieu, it seems, elected to die a little night after night. There is roughly 15-minute block of time on January 29th when Reed is largely unaccounted for. She claims that she was driving around looking for O'Keefe, which, like a lot in this case, doesn't make much sense. In these minutes, she called O'Keefe over and over and at one point left a brief voicemail. An enhanced version of the recording posted on YouTube captures her asking tearfully, "John, where the F are you?" But the rawer, unintelligible version of this voicemail that played in the courtroom is almost frightening in its echoing indistinctness. I'm going to see if I could play it real quick. Ooh, I'm definitely not going to sift through 8 minutes of that. All right. So I lost my place. It could be the high whimper of a dying animal or the faintly musical wail of a wraith, or a fragment of a requiem played backward. The person it was meant for never heard it, and maybe the person who left it was never there. I mean, gosh, with that kind of an advertisement, how could I not play it? You know what? Hi,
everyone. I'm Michelle Yu. Thanks for coming.
I'm going to do it. Hey, Dominic, is this still up on the screen or no?
Yep, yeah. I see it.
All right, cool.
Yeah.
Let's see if I could get to this. Doesn't Dominic have like the craziest bro voice? Every time he sounds like he's like in the middle of a frat party or something. All right.
Case against Karen Reed. The 44-year-old is charged with second-degree murder, motor vehicle manslaughter, and leaving.
Okay, this must be it.
Early calls she made to O'Keefe after turning in for the night.
John, I'm here with your kids. Nobody knows what you want her. Yeah, it's 1 in the morning. I'm with your niece and nephew. You pervert. You're a pervert. John, I'm going home. I cannot babysit your niece. I need to go home. You are using me right now. You're another girl. She's sleeping next to me. You're a loser.
And
okay, I don't know about that. I don't know about you, sir. You were a married man, correct?
Technically, yeah.
Well, I'm just gonna say that sounds a lot like the kind of voicemail I would get if I just decided not to come home one night. I could see my wife leaving me those kinds of messages.
She doesn't seem drunk though.
Yeah.
Like if I'm gonna be completely bombed like that, I'm not forming full sentences.
That is a good observation, or maybe it was like a brief moment of lucidity.
I mean,
he did say that you should be here in bed with me right now. I'm assuming that she was like already in bed and maybe refreshed with like an aspirin. I don't know.
No.
But I'll tell you what it doesn't sound like. It doesn't sound like a guy. It doesn't sound like a person who knew that anybody was dead. He
No.
literally said, "You should be here in bed with me right now," which, to be fair, could be like, instead of being dead, you should be here in bed with me right now. But it just didn't sound like somebody who was knowledgeable that her boyfriend was dead. She was very much pissed off because he wasn't there with her in that moment. She expected him to be there. He wasn't there. She even said he's out there effing some other woman.
Or could that be a ruse to make it look like she was involved?
I want you to think back to the Watts case. In the Watts case, isn't it true that Christopher Watts tried to do something similar?
Yes.
And how many text messages did he leave to Shanann when he tried to do something similar?
More than a dozen.
Was it more than a dozen?
Well, he tried. I would say it was less than 9. He had like 4 or 5 on hers, and then he tried to write from Shanann's phone to Nicole to make it look like she was talking right away in the morning and then dissipated. So he tried to make it look like she was still alive when she wasn't.
All right. Well, let's say it was 9. Let's say it was a dozen. It wasn't 53.
No.
And those text messages are, I don't want to, I wonder if I'm misremembering this. Didn't he leave her a voicemail about like some vacation?
About the weekend vacation to Aspen.
Yeah. To make it look like whatever, but it was like this whatever stupid email or voicemail that meant nothing. She was like top of the morning pissed off at this guy, wondering if he's effing some other woman, and texting him 53 times the way that I suspect my wife would probably, well, I don't think she would probably text me that many times. She'd probably just be, you know what? Wherever you're at, you could just stay there.
Pretty much.
Oh.
53 times.
Yeah, 53 times. All right, I got to go back to my place in that article. We talked about the hippocampus thing, version, the petite mort thing, version. Okay.
Somebody said she had soda water and 3 vodka shots. That's it?
Well, we don't know for sure how much she had. Oh, and by the way, that was the end of the article. Go figure. Okay. Yeah, it's unknown specifically how much she actually had. If it was more or less than 4 drinks. She's on video, and it appears that she is putting shots into a soda water. Perhaps it was vodka, perhaps it was tequila, perhaps it was something else. There was some receipts that made itself into testimony, but some of them didn't. But it was somewhere between 4 and 9. But I do know that her blood alcohol was tested at around 8 a.m. that day, and she was still over the legal limit in the morning.
That's more than 3 shots of vodka.
Really, really drunk. Keep in mind, I want to say that she's maybe $115, 5'2", 5'3" she looks about. I don't know what her actual vitals are, but it was somewhere around that. Amber says, I watched the video and I agree with you at Mark Stone. And what did Mark Stone say? Mark Stone said she had half the alcohol that the CW said she had, the Commonwealth said she had. They counted every seltzer tall glass as alcohol before she even put a shot in. And then you got to count for, well, was she having singles or doubles? I don't know. Whenever I go and I order drinks at a bar, I usually order a double anything. So if it's a Coke and whiskey, there's 2 shots in there at all times. And so it might have looked like 4, but it was really technically 8 ounces of hard liquor. Now I don't normally drink that much, like ever, because I'm old.
Yeah.
I'm past the days.
I don't either.
I don't need to have that much alcohol to have a good time, sir. That's all I'm saying. Yeah. Sarcasm says, you don't call 53 times ever, unless you're really, really, really angry or expecting them to answer at some point.
I think the only time I've called that much was to my mom, and that was probably like 10 times, not 53.
Well, I'll tell you what, if I thought that my wife was missing, I would probably call her maybe a dozen times and then start calling her sister because something's wrong.
That or not Googling, I'd be calling 911. I'd be calling somebody that's in law enforcement or something, buddies of mine.
Yeah, 911. I mean, law enforcement for sure. I start calling her dad. I start going down the list of people to call.
Never
But I only
Google.
call her 53 times unless I thought she was, well, not ever, but I could see if a woman thought that her boyfriend was purposefully ignoring her calls, why she would keep calling over and over if she was intoxicated and really mad.
Mm-hmm.
I could see that. I don't think she would do it sober, but if she was still like, let's say 0.17, oh yeah. Oh yeah. Did I ever tell you about the story about when my wife got a little tipsy on tequila when we were dating? So one of our first vacations ever, we went to Puerto Vallarta. I know I mispronounced that really bad. But it was vacation. It was like this all-inclusive vacation. And we went on like this dinner cruise or whatever. And while we're on the dinner cruise, naturally, they were handing out shots of tequila. I was like, oh, great. And, you know, it was early in the day and we were drinking prior to that. So, and my wife at the time might have been like $1.15, $1.20, 5'5", so very low tolerance. But for whatever reason, when you get her on tequila, man, she gets angry. We were maybe a half hour in. We were standing next to people on the edge of the boat. And there was this other lady that was standing right next to me, and she tries to start a fight with this lady. It's like, what's wrong with you? She's just standing there with her friend. And she's like, has choice words for this lady. I had to sit her down. It's like, we're just going to sit right here until all of this blows over. And we had to stay there pretty much the rest of the time because I think she got sick after that.
She became the Incredible Hulk.
Oh, she became the Incredible Hulk, and I had to calm her down and try to prevent her from throwing people overboard or accidentally fall overboard herself. Jesus. And then I remember that night we were both, let's just say we were both above 0.08, and we were like walking through the streets of Mexico trying to find our hotel because we got lost on the pier, no less. Luckily, we made it. It was a hell of a time, sir. Oh, those were the days, man. But yeah, so the jury was they came back mistrial in this case. If ever there was a case where you were looking for reasonable doubt, this would have been the case. I would have bet lots of money that this was going to come back as an acquittal. It turns out that you know what? Let me see if I could read to you the four-person's note to the judge. Karen Reed, mistrial juror note. Somebody's got to have the text of it.
So what happens now that it's a mistrial?
Well, now that it's a mistrial, let me make sure that this is the right thing before I go any further. Well, the Commonwealth has already said that they're going to retry the case.
Oh.
Mind you, this particular case lasted 31 days of court, which is essentially 2 months. They've been litigating this case for like 2 years. And so the idea that they're going to start all the way back to square one, which is literally what they're going to do, is just a bit much. It's just a bit much.
Has she been confined this whole time?
No, she's been out. Actually, don't quote me on that. She was out, right? I want to say that she was out. I'm pretty sure she was out. She's definitely out now. She hasn't been recharged yet, but I suspect it's forthcoming. Starchasm says 53 calls yelling is cray. After calling 10, why are you not calling others at the party looking for him? Yeah, well, that's
all your options you got to try and look at. She was out on bond. Underneath what you said, she was out on bond. How much was her bond?
In a murder, I have no idea how much the bond was. Jody Who confirms that she's been out. That's what I thought. I thought that she's been out on bond the whole time, and so she's still out. So she wasn't in. So basically, either she was gonna, if she was guilty, she was gonna go to prison. Acquitted, obviously, she's out. She's not in right now. So, but this was the moment that the jury declared a mistrial. Let me
80K.
Yeah. How do I share my screen again? Here we go. Boom. Yeah, let's share that. Okay.
And who's that guy right there?
Oh, that's a good question.
Is
His
it really
name escapes me at the moment. What is his name? What is his name? Who is that?
They're really focusing on him. Instead of her.
All right, Mr. Foreman, I am in receipt of your note. Judge Cannoni, despite our
John
rigorous
Paul's-
efforts,
Oh.
we continue to find ourselves at an impasse.
John's brother.
Our perspectives on the evidence are starkly divided. Some members of the jury firmly believe that the evidence surpasses the burden of proof, establishing the elements of the charges beyond a reasonable doubt.
Say that again,
Continue
Judge.
to find ourselves.
I thought it was really interesting what she said. It was the most telling thing of the entire statement, the first couple of sentences. Let's hear that again.
All right, Mr. Foreman, I am in receipt of your note. Judge Cannoni, despite our rigorous efforts, we continue to find ourselves at an impasse. Our perspectives on the evidence are starkly divided. Some members of the jury firmly believe that the evidence surpasses the burden of proof, establishing the elements of the charges beyond a reasonable doubt. Conversely, others find the evidence fails to meet this standard and does not sufficiently establish the necessary elements of the charges. The deep division is not due to a lack of effort or diligence, but rather a sincere adherence to our individual principles and moral convictions. To continue to deliberate would be futile and only serve to force us to compromise these deeply held beliefs. I'm not going to do that to you folks. Your service is complete. I'm declaring a mistrial in this case. I'll be in to see you privately in a few minutes. So thank you so much for your service.
Yeah. So when she said that some jurors are of the opinion that the Commonwealth has met its burden, that could literally be one. It could have been 11-1 in favor of acquittal. And there was just one person that was standing their ground. It's probably more likely that there was at least two, but some literally some could be one. Others, plural, means that, and that just tells me the way that it was written, more were in favor of acquittal than not. And are we ever going to get to the point where we know what the count was? Are we ever going to get to the point where we know exactly what happened? I'd imagine that some of the jurors that were in deliberations are at some point going to anonymously leak what happened, but they're not going to attach their names to it, I suspect. There's already been reports of some of the alternates giving statements to the media, but they weren't allowed in the deliberation room, so it's not really worth.
Thought you weren't supposed to do that.
Well, usually the instructions are not that you can't talk about it. Well, actually in a mistrial, it's a little bit different. A little bit. I mean, they can technically talk about it. It's not the same. It's not like it's a confidential thing.
Oh, here I thought it was.
Yeah. Like you see these jurors, they come out there and they make these media deals to give interviews and their accounts of the case. But usually that's after a result. After a mistrial, the rules are a little bit different. And so, for example, the alternate juror that came in, they gave some statements about their opinions. They said that to me, the Commonwealth didn't meet their burden, but I have no idea what happened in deliberations because I wasn't in the room. I suspect that there's going to be jurors that come out anonymously and say exactly what happened, but you'll never know who or what was said.
So obviously, if they do another new trial, it's going to be a whole bunch of new jurors, correct?
Oh yeah, there is not only new jurors, it's probably going to be a brand new venue.
So new judge, new everything.
New judge, new courthouse, maybe new attorneys. Well, definitely maybe new prosecutors, probably new prosecutors. Yeah, it's literally a redo, which I hate this aspect of criminal law. I hate the fact that they could not prove their case, not meet their burden beyond a reasonable doubt. A mistrial is declared and they have the option to basically get a mulligan. I hate that. I just hate it. It means literally, I mean, it took them two and a half years to get to this point where we're on the eve of a verdict and we get a mistrial. And literally the prosecution fails in this case. Karen Reed thinks that she's off the hook until they file new charges. And we got to do this all over again. It just, it to me, violates legal principles surrounding res judicata. You had your chance and you failed. You're not supposed to be allowed to get two bites at the apple, but here they're going to have that opportunity. Mandy A says, did you see the threat that was placed in front of Turtle Boy's house? I did not see that, Mandy. What was the threat? Hasn't he been getting a lot of threats? There's this really famous guy that's been in protest, that's been surrounding these hearings, like from the very beginning. He's infamously known as Turtle Boy. He has been criminally charged with harassing some of the people in this case, among other things. He's pled not guilty. Janine says, don't look. I'm not going to look. Yeah. Megan Florida says she was out on $50,000 bond. Yeah, second degree murder. That still seems a bit shallow for a murder charge.
I say usually it's over 100, isn't? But
what's going on here in the chat? Joel says maybe Omar will be able to listen to it also because Jen even says in the call that they flipped John's body over. I didn't hear that. And then somebody has links to a call. What is this call? This Carrie's call. Let's see what this is. What is this, folks? I guess we're going to find out, huh? How do I click on this link without making it do a... Hold. Whatever I did, that was not the move. Oh, crap.
if you can highlight it in chat and then post it into your address tab.
Back to Jules. Here it is. Oh, hide that.
Gen call is above the link.
Yeah. I don't know how to. I guess if I try to do it this way, maybe I could do it here. Let me try something else. So what's going on over there on your channel, sir?
I'm in a bathroom.
On my channel?
Yeah.
What do you mean?
Do you got any crazy shows going on, or like what's the what do you got coming up on your channel?
I just posted our video.
Yeah. Like what is the latest stream of consciousness over on the Zawaki channel?
Scary content.
Guess what I'm doing?
Oh, who is that in the background? Hey, Dom, is that you?
That is my son.
Oh, that's your son? Okay.
You want to come say hi? Just quickly. My mini-me.
Oh, well, congratulations. And how old is your mini-me?
He is 11, will be 12 in October.
He said he's 11?
Yep.
All right, I'm messing up all over the place. All right,
Hey,
here's the
Omar.
call. Yeah.
Oh, okay, I was going to say I just put the link in the comments. Or the
Oh, yeah, I
private
see
chat.
it. He just posted there. There you go.
All right, cool. Let's play this phone call.
Okay.
Let's see what this is
Okay.
about. This is from January 29th, 2022, approximately 5 a.m. This is the 911 call placed by Carrie Roberts.
Omar, there's no audio.
Is there really no audio?
Yeah, there's
Yeah.
no audio, but I've been listening to it to myself.
Oh, well,
I just was going to keep quiet.
You could have told me something earlier, Mr. Dominic, sir. No, it's good. All right, you know what? Here, let's stop that and let's go to this screen. I was thinking the whole time. Okay, here we go. Let's share this. Tell me if you could hear it now.
Can't believe it's sounding good.
Yep.
All right, good.
Hi, my name is Carrie. I'm calling because my friend's boyfriend did not come home last night. We were at Waterfall, and now she is calling me hysterical because she doesn't know where he is. You didn't pick anybody up by the name of John O'Keefe, did you?
John O'Keefe?
Yeah, he's a Boston cop, and he would be on foot, but
No.
I think he probably got a ride and passed out at someone's house. I don't know, but...
Yep, no, we didn't lock anybody up or anything like that. And where does he live?
He lives on Meadow, right off the Pleasant.
He lives on Meadow off of Pleasant. Okay, and is the wife home? You said his girlfriend?
It's his girlfriend, yeah. They were out having drinks, and then she left and expected him to come home at some point, and he never did.
Yep.
And so I said to her, you know, my husband had been out with them earlier in the night, but then he came home, and he has custody of his niece and nephew because their parents passed away.
Okay.
And so she's home with the niece and nephew, and they're old enough to be home. It's just she's nervous because he never even called the niece.
Yeah.
So she's like, I feel like something happened. And I said, okay. Well, so call the area hospital. Nobody has him. I personally think someone probably picked him up and he passed out. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
He didn't drive last night?
No.
No. Okay. Again, it's more. It would be driven by. She would have to, call in, come to the station, and talk to us. But I mean, as of right now, it's more. He just didn't come home last night.
Yeah.
Is this common sometimes?
Exactly.
Happen with him?
No. That's why. Since he didn't call his niece. That's kind of why she's more freaking out. So I figured I called the area hospitals. I said I would call Canton police just to make sure he didn't get picked up. But like I said, he's a Boston police officer. He knows a bunch of people. Anybody could have picked him up.
Yeah.
Freaking it out.
Okay.
Apparently they were having a blizzard party of some sort.
Yeah. No.
I don't know.
Unfortunately, I wasn't there. I was stuck here. But we didn't get any calls, anything like that. Nobody was arrested or anything like that.
Okay.
All righty.
All right. Well, thank you.
All right. No problem. Good luck.
Okay. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Okay, so that is Karen. Well, that was that phone call. Let's listen to Jen's 911 call and let's decipher the difference. I think I got to share it for you guys to hear the audio because that's what happened last time. Let me do this. I'll do share screen of this one.
34 Fairview Road in Canton, Mass. There's a man passed out in the snow.
You're in Canton? Hold on. I'm going to transfer over to Canton Police. You call me. You're connected to Nolan, okay?
Yeah, I don't know why I did that.
It's the towers. I'll try to stay on the line.
I think he's dead. We need, you got to get here ASAP, okay?
All right, I'm going to transfer the line. I'm going to transfer to Canton.
Okay. I know. Where are the blankets? I don't see blankets, Terry.
911, what's your emergency?
Yes, I need someone to come immediately to 34 Fairview Road, Canton, Mass.
What's going on?
There's a guy unresponsive in the snow.
In the snow at 34?
He passed out, yes. 34, the Albert resident, yes. I just pulled up and found him.
Okay, 34 Fairview?
34 Fairview, Canton, Mass, yes.
911, that's not recorded. Where's your emergency? Hello?
Yes, I'm sorry. Can you come to 34 Fairview Road in Canton?
34 Fairview?
Yes, there's a man unresponsive in the snow.
Okay. Is he blue at all?
You've got to get here, okay?
Okay. What's going on? Is he face down?
We just flipped him over.
Okay. And who's that in the background? Is that someone related?
Okay, that's his girlfriend. His name is John O'Keefe.
Okay, how old is he?
John is 46 years old.
46. How long has he been outside?
I don't know. I don't know. He got out of the car and
Is he breathing?
a couple of hours. Is he Carrie? Is he? I don't know if he's breathing. There are two women trying to do his body heat, and they're hysterical.
Okay, can you just try to ask him? I know it's tough, but we already have the fire department going. I just got to know if he's breathing.
Is he breathing, you guys? It doesn't seem to be breathing.
Okay, do they know how to do CPR? Do they want to attempt CPR?
You guys, Carrie, can you guys do CPR? No.
Well, first of all, check for a pulse.
Okay, they don't feel comfortable doing so?
No, I think he's passed away.
Okay. All right, we got the fire department and the police department on the way. If everyone's declining.
So there is testimony that Karen had basically like lifted up her shirt and was trying to like transfer body heat to John, like trying to resuscitate him. And you hear them screaming, he's not breathing. And I don't know if they were checking for a pulse or not, but well, let's just continue on with this call.
CPR, then I'll hang up with you, and if anything changes, you can give us a call back. Where are you guys outside?
Oh, right out front of his car. I know, I'm on the phone with the ambulance. I know, honey, I know. So, Carrie, you got to get off him, honey. Carrie, you got to get off of him. This is a scene.
Do you know if there was any alcohol or drugs involved?
They had been out.
They've been out drinking?
Yes, but I'm talking hours ago, maybe. And I think I don't know how long he's been in the snow.
Okay, is there any bleeding or anything? Maybe hit his head out?
Yes, possibly. There seems to be bleeding in the face.
Okay, bleeding from the face. All right.
Yes.
And how big's the pool of blood, if there is any?
Something's coming out of his nose, and one of the women is doing CPR.
Okay, one of the women is doing CPR?
Yes, they're both working on him.
All right, if she's doing CPR, just just give us a call back if he becomes responsive, right? But we're on the way.
Okay, thank you.
Somebody said that some guy, instead of letting them know that it was a friend, a cop.
Obviously was a cop, right? Carrie, in her 911 call, she identified him as a cop right away. And then, this one, not only was this call like around 6 a.m. that morning, but I don't know if you were here with us yet when we went over the text message. Jen McCabe texted at 2:27, Haas long to die in cold, HOS typo. We did. You were here. I think you were.
Yep.
Right. That was at 2:27 a.m. I don't remember how they dealt with the text message at 2:27 a.m. Somehow it was magically not 2:27, and it must have been after, or around this time when she discovered him. But let's just, if it was true, and obviously it must not have been because there was something to refute it. I just missed it because I don't see how a jury could overcome the fact that she's aware that he's laying there in the snow at 2:27. You get this 911 call 3.5 hours later. And then don't have reasonable doubt enough to acquit the guy unless no matter what happened, no matter what was presented in this case, they just didn't like the way that Karen Reed was behaving herself on the text messages possibly, or was overzealous in their prosecution of driving while under the influence that you weren't going to convince them either way of guilt or innocence. They're always going to say guilty. I just don't understand it. I don't understand anybody that tells me that this was proven beyond a reasonable doubt. And for that reason, people, they could come in here and chime in with their expert opinions on what we think of the evidence. And honestly, it doesn't effing matter because jurors are the ones that decide on the case anyway. I could tell you up and down why I logically think that somebody's guilty or innocent. But if one person wants to stand on their own business and declare a specific verdict, there's nothing anybody can do about it. And that's the American justice system, for better or worse. But I guess you could say it's better than the Salem witch trials. This coincidentally was also around Massachusetts, where they had very different versions of how to convict people around the 1600s over there. But that's another time. But folks, I didn't realize it was so late. I got to get going. I got to wrap the stream up. Thank you so much for joining us. Hey, Zawaki, thanks for coming in and hanging out with the Tilted Lawyer podcast for a little bit anyway.
Learn some more about a different case. So
yeah, we got to get you on this Karen Reed business. There's a lot of other cases coming up that maybe we got to get you in on too. to take your mind off of some of the bad news I gave you for the for Watt's case. But always a pleasure to talk with you, sir.
You as well.
Hopefully we'll do it again really soon. For the rest of you guys, thank you so much for joining us. I love you all, and we will see you guys next time. Bye-bye.